The chapter today is based on a Japanese tale that discusses about a thoughtful son called Taro. So, to know more about it, let's listen to the story.
Taro's Reward. Before you read, this is a story about a thoughtful and loving son. He works hard to fulfill his parents' wishes and gets some unexpected help. A young woodcutter named Taro lived with his mother and father on a lonely hillside. All day long he chopped wood in the forest. Though he worked very hard, he earned very little money. This made him sad, for he was a thoughtful son and wanted to give his old parents everything they needed. One evening, when Taro and his parents were sitting in a corner of their hut, a strong wind began to blow. It whistled through the cracks of the hut, and everyone felt very cold. Suddenly, Taro's father said, "I wish I had a cup of sake. It would warm me and do my old heart good." This made Taro sadder than ever, for the heart-warming drink called sake was very expensive. How do I earn more money? He asked himself. How do I get a little sake for my poor old father? He decided to work harder than before. Next morning, Taro jumped out of bed earlier than usual and made his way to the forest. He chopped and cut as the sun climbed, and soon he was so warm that he had to take off his jacket. His mouth was dry and his face was wet with sweat. My poor old father, he thought. If only he was as warm as I. And with that, he began to chop even faster, thinking of the extra money he must earn to buy the sake to warm the old man's bones. Then suddenly, Taro stopped chopping. What was that sound he heard? Could it be possibly be rushing water? Taro could not remember ever seeing or hearing a rushing stream in that part of the forest. He was thirsty. The axe dropped out of his hands and he ran in the direction of the sound. Taro saw a beautiful little waterfall hidden behind a rock. Kneeling at a place where the water flowed quietly, he cupped a little in his hands and put it to his lips. Was it water, or was it a sake? He tasted it again and again, and always it was the delicious sake instead of cold water. Taro quickly filled the pitcher he had with him and hurried home. The old man was delighted with the sake. After only one swallow of the liquid, he stopped shivering and did a little dance in the middle of the floor. That afternoon, a neighbor stopped by for a visit. Taro's father politely offered her a cup of the sake. The lady drank it greedily and thanked the old man. Then Taro told her the story of the magic waterfall. Thanking them for the delicious drink, she left in a hurry. By nightfall, she had spread the story throughout the whole village. That evening, there was a long procession of visitors to the woodcutter's house. Each man heard the story of the waterfall and took a sip of the sake. In less than an hour, the pitcher was empty. Next morning, Taro started for work even earlier than the morning before. He carried with him the largest pitcher he owned, for he intended first of all to go to the waterfall. When he reached it, he found to his great surprise all his neighbors there. They were carrying pitchers, jars, buckets, anything they could find to hold the magic sake. Then one villager knelt and held his mouth under the waterfall to drink. He drank again and then shouted angrily, "Water! Nothing but water!" Others also tried, but there was no sake, only cold water. "We have been tricked," shouted the villagers. "Where is Taro? Let us drown him in this waterfall." What? But Taro had been wise enough to slip behind a rock when he saw how things were going. He was nowhere to be found. Muttering their anger and disappointment, the villagers left the place one by one. Taro came out from his hiding place. Was it true? He wondered. Was the sake a dream? Once more he caught a little liquid in his hand and put it to his lips. It was the same fine sake. To the thoughtful son, the magic waterfall gave the delicious sake. To everyone else, it gave only cold water. The story of Taro and his magic waterfall reached the Emperor of Japan. He sent for the young woodcutter and rewarded him with 20 pieces of gold for having been so good and kind. Then he named the most beautiful fountain in the city after Taro. This, said the emperor, was to encourage all children to honor and obey their parents.
I hope you all have liked this story. Let's try to understand it better. In the story, there is a woodcutter called Taro. He lived with his old parents on a lonely hillside and earned a small amount of money from his work. This made him sad because he could not give a better life to his parents. One day it was very cold. Taro's father wished for a cup of sei is a Japanese drink. This made Taro worried as sei was a very expensive drink. He could not afford it. But he did not lose hope. He decided to work harder. He kept on chopping the woods for a long time. One day, while chopping the wood, he felt thirsty. Suddenly, he heard a sound of rushing water. He ran in that direction and he saw a beautiful waterfall. What happened next? He drank the liquid, but to his surprise, it was not water. It was a magical drink. Say, Taro had a pitcher with him. He filled it with this delicious liquid and gave that liquid to his father. His father was very much delighted when he drank that liquid. That day, many visitors came to Taro's hut. They came to know about this magical water. Taro told this story of magical water, and this story spread to each and every villager. But we see that the waterfall did not give any magical water to the villagers. The villagers got furious at Taro. They thought Taro had tricked them. They ran after Taro's life. Taro hid behind the rock and waited till all the villagers went home. Now, what happened? Taro again tasted that water. But to his surprise, that water still was sick. The fall was giving Taro sick, while all other villagers were given plain water. Finally, the story of Taro's care for his parents reached the king. He awarded Taro 20 pieces of gold to encourage other children to take care of their parents. I hope you all have enjoyed and understood the story. And also, we all are inspired by Taro as well. After reading and understanding the story, let's sum up. Taro was a young woodcutter who earned money by chopping woods. But the money he earned was not sufficient for him and his parents. One day, it started blowing cold winds. His father wished if he could have some sake to keep himself warm. Taro was sad as he did not have money to buy the expensive sake. He decided to work hard. Next day, he woke up early and went to the forest to chop woods. Suddenly, he heard the sound of rushing water. As he was thirsty, he followed the sound of water. He went near to the fall and cupped water in his hands. To his surprise, he discovered that water was not just plain water but sake. He became happy and filled the sake in his pitcher. On reaching home, he gave this sake to his father. The father felt delighted to sip the sake. A neighbor came in the evening and father offered her a cup of sake. The woman happily tasted the sake. Taro's father told her about the entire incident which happened to Taro. Now, this news about the sake spread like a jungle fire. Everyone rushed to Taro's home and tasted the sake. Next morning, Taro again woke up early, searched the biggest pitcher and went to the waterfall. He was amazed to see that all the villagers already reached the waterfall with their buckets and pitchers. People rushed to taste the sake coming from the waterfall. But they found that water of the fall was not sake but plain water. At this, people became angry and decided to drown Taro into the fall. Taro saved his life by hiding behind the rock and waited till everyone left the place. He now tasted water again. But to his surprise, the waterfall still gave Taro sake. The story of Taro's care for his parents reached the king. He awarded Taro with 20 pieces of gold and also named a fountain after him. The king did so to encourage other children to be a thoughtful son like Taro.